I'm Bob Sakalas. This is Dave Maloney. We are here to talk to you about BTP, even though Devin knows more than most people in the room, right, Devin? We're picking on you today. All right. Yeah, so I think everybody went to a few sessions where you saw a lot about BTP, correct? Chevron had an amazing session. Anybody go to that one? Yeah, a lot of Chevron. ConocoPhillips, they talked about it, keeping a clean core, right? So there's been a lot of really good sessions about what BTP can do. So hopefully we'll show you a few things that are new. But before we get started, does anybody want to guess at how many enterprise customers, not human being customers, are currently using BTP? More than 100.
And Bob, is this for a prize?
This is for a prize.
Yeah.
We have
some
look at these
beautiful
awesome
socks. Your
awesome
favorite
SAP
SAP
socks.
logo?
There we go. 10,000, getting closer.
18,000.
18,000, getting closer.
25,000.
Winner, it's 27,000. It's close enough. So there you go.
Nice.
And by the way, it's not just socks. It's also epic bragging rights. So you guys now know how this is going to work. So 99 out of 100 of the largest companies on earth run SAP. Anybody want to guess at what percentage uses BTP out of those 100? Or 99, actually. For epic bragging rights and socks. Nope. Less than 100, but I love the optimism in the room. 70.
That's close enough.
You really wanted these socks. Okay, it's the epic bragging rights that matter the most. Like every presentation you've ever seen from SAP, if we talk about the futures that haven't come out yet, those details may change. I'm Big Picture Bob. I'm going to talk a lot about the big picture of BTP, and that's best practices, Dave. And you kind of know the roles that we're going to have in this presentation. So another question for you. This one's not for socks, but what do you guys think? Do you think predicting the future is simple and easy, or do you think it's pretty hard? Hard, right? Everybody thinks it's hard. I tried to predict the OU Texas game. That didn't work out for me. So the question that I want you guys to help me with, I actually think it might be easier to predict than we realize, is this one. What will enterprise systems look like just 6 years from now? I think all of us are in the enterprise systems business. Agreed? Yep. So this is kind of an important question to us. And so, quick question for you. Is the world going to be moving faster or slower? Faster, no doubt about it. Are landscapes going to be more diverse or less diverse 6 years from now?
You will have consolidation.
We have one consolidation. Does everybody agree? Or do you think you're going to have more apps than less apps? What do you think? More apps in the back. Shri, you didn't get socks out of that one. How about real-time customers, your company's customers? Are they going to expect everything in real time from you? Yes. Absolutely. What about your decision makers? Do they want real-time numbers right now? Yes. Are they getting real-time numbers? Not so much. A little bit, right? Are we going to have one cloud or multiple clouds? Are we going to have some hybrid stuff on premise too? What do you think? Multiple cloud, going to be a little bit hybrid. Is AI going to make a big difference 6 years from now? Yes. And automation-wise, probably a lot of automation, correct? Right? So does that make IT's mission more complicated when everything starts relying on IT? Yes. Absolutely. I was actually in Houston last year at Intercontinental, at an American Airlines gate. We had lots of passengers, we had a crew, we had an airplane. Somebody in Dallas pressed delete by mistake. I can tell you that their business and tech is completely inseparable. We could not leave. We actually stayed overnight because they couldn't undo the flight. Anyway, is competition going to be more acute? No doubt. The business and tech will be inseparable. So I think we know what the future is for us at least. May not help us at OU Texas, but it's going to be a very modular world. Apps are going to get smaller. It's going to be a more composable ERP than it is today. We're going to have everything work well together, whether it's from one vendor or from many, many vendors. That's kind of the future. It's got to be real time. And so I think predicting our future, at least in this kind of space, is more predictable than we all realize. And so here's the problem. Mark Cuban's pretty famous for this, and if you haven't seen his masterclass on masterclass.com, it's a great masterclass. But he talks about this. Change is accelerating, and we don't kind of appreciate how much quicker everything's coming at us every single day. Our competitors are changing all the time. Our systems are going to have to change quicker than they have in the past. And we have a problem, though, because I've got the secret cam hidden in Pemex's headquarters, by the way. That's where it is.
Yeah.
This is happening right now. Can you care to guess what this is? It's a group of people that are wanting to change things. And they are doing, and what winds up happening? There's a lot of short-termism, and nobody likes isms. Even Ferris Bueller didn't like isms. But I mean, bottom line is, when there's short-termism, you wind up having to adjust quickly. So you use bubble gum and duct tape to glue it onto your enterprise systems, and as a result, it gets more complicated. Does everybody have a chart that looks something like this? Yeah, everybody does. There's no doubt about it. So, for a pair of socks, and epic bragging rights, right? How many on-premises apps does the average Fortune 500 run today? What do you think?
50.
How much?
70.
Nope, a lot more.
500.
A little bit lower. 400. There's a winner chicken dinner right there. Or socks, one or the other. Plus epic bragging rights. But yeah, basically 484 on-premises apps. The SaaS app collection has been growing quicker than we've been discontinuing apps over here. So it's just a complicated world. And what happens if you do a merger or acquisition? Yeah, is that 1 + 1, or is that kind of an exponential problem? Exponential, right? And so this is your spoiler alert for BTP. It's not the oldest, most established company that survives and thrives. It's the ones that can adapt to change. Adapting to change is crucially important because change is coming faster and faster. No doubt about it. BTP helps you become more modular, helps you adapt, helps you use AI, which is our topic of the day. But above everything else, it helps you become more future-proof. And being future-proof and being ready for this future, we believe, is mission critical. So Dave and I both get to travel the country a lot. We talk to customers about the problems that they're working on. And they're usually hairy problems like this. How do we optimize our pricing? How do we reduce our costs? All these things are always on the survey. Are these in your top goals as well? What do you think? Yep, a lot of nodding in the room. So the problem, of course, is that people at your company are working on different problems at the same time. So somebody might be working on how do we optimize our costs in this conference room, while somebody else is working on optimizing pricing in a different conference room, while somebody else is talking about asset management in a third conference room. And as a result, if you don't leverage a platform, they're going to assemble unique tech stacks to solve each one of those problems, which turn into more technical debt, because now you have to maintain this tech stack. And guess what? Everything in that tech stack is changing all the time. So you have to make sure that the thing keeps on running for you a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now in the future. And so here's what BTP does well in a nutshell, right? Integration, planning, data fabric, all that stuff. If you look at each one of these problems, you're going to discover that there's lots of commonality. You got to solve the data problem, you got to solve the integration problem, you got to solve all these problems in each one of these areas. And if you use a platform to get that done, you're going to be able to build greater momentum.
Yeah, and you saw the pictures before, the different conference rooms. Let me ask you from an IT perspective. You have one team doing integration, one team doing analytics, one team doing automation, one team doing AI. Are they all talking together to use the same platform? Or is every team off on their own in a silo, picking their integration tool that they want to use, picking their automation tool, their analytics tool, and whatnot? And my key message is this, is that when you deploy BTP, and I've heard several presentations, which I'll call out here in a bit, from this week, Chevron, Mohawk, Messer, all kind of said the same thing, where they deployed one part of the platform, and then they look to leverage other parts of it. And what I've seen, and especially from our AI deployments in these early days, not one of them were successful by deploying a single service. Like, we had our AI service, AI core deployed that, and that took care of it. They had to get data to the AI. They had to get analytics around the AI. Once the AI run, they had to have automation. So the key thing here, and it's a word I heard back when I first joined SAP in 2003 in product management, platform leverage. Let me ask one last question before we go on. Has anybody here seen the BlackBerry movie? Everybody seen the oh my God, so many great lessons in that movie about platform leverage versus one thing that's really good, And then, been here for a while. Was anybody here in 2012 when Sony's former CEO spoke at Sapphire about how they had the #1 music device on the market? They had the largest global retail channel and the most artists under contract. And they lost all that within a 2-year span to a vendor or competitor that didn't even exist. And that's because of platforms. So we talk about BTP, it's critical you leverage this platform for your success.
Yeah, what's crazy is you might think that Apple was actually bigger than Sony at the time, but it wasn't. Apple was a $10 billion company at that moment in time. Sony was a $40 billion company, 4 times larger, and they still lost the music business.
But the good news I'll say for this Sony, they learned their lessons. You know, who's the number one game platform now in the world? Sony. They learned the lessons and moved on. They didn't make the same mistakes they made in the music business.
Yeah, so here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get agile at scale. We're trying to overcome the complexity because complexity is what's slowing us down in development. It's slowing us down with the data. I mean, everybody's fighting data silos all over their organization, just the way it is, right? And ultimately, people are trying to get a lot smarter with making decisions with data. If you can overcome the complexity, you're going to be a lot better off. And the question I always ask every customer that I call on is this one. Are the people that are lining up at your door trying to get in, are they actually helping you simplify? Are people even talking about that? I see a lot of negative nods. I totally agree. Most people are trying to add one more Band-Aid onto your system. And it's a genuine problem because it just keeps growing and growing. If you look at the vendors that are competing for your business in just the machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data space, it's mind-boggling. And you might think this is the way it's always been. No, but it's been growing, right? Even if I narrowed it down to the top 25, by the way, it's still an integration nightmare. The growth is pretty obvious here. 10 years ago, we had roughly 140 vendors competing in this space. We are now up to 1,416 as of last year. So, question for you for Epic bragging rights again. Is it slowing or is it accelerating? And what would you guess the 2024 number was if 2023 was 1,416? Wow. I love the optimism in the room, but no, it's right. Let's guess a little lower.
2,500.
Less than 2,500, but you guys are tied.
1,800.
Higher.
2,000.
2,000. We're giving it to 2,000. Epic bragging rights. It's 2011 this year, by the way. Roughly 41% growth. So this is not going to get easier. More vendors are coming to see you right now. They're lining up outside your door. And so, BTP in a nutshell comes down to this. You can simplify with it. It's created to help you combine SAP stuff with non-SAP stuff in a modular way. There's roughly 65, 70 match services that help us, by the way, develop too. So that they exist to help SAP develop into the future. They help you as well. It comes with business content. This is a key differentiator. We give you content to help you go fast. We also give you blueprints. There's been a lot of announcements about additional blueprints that are coming out from SAP, so you're not starting with a clean sheet of paper and taking on that risk yourself. You're going to see a blueprint on how to do it, and it's based on good engineering at other companies, things that have been well tested. It helps you innovate quickly, reduce risk, and above everything else, simplify the complexity and keep that core system clean, or cleaner than it's ever been, because it is definitely a journey. And so here's where we're at. We got this complex chart. We can't erase the complex chart. The good news is modularity is now finally good enough to help us solve this problem. But that's our point A. And when I look at that point A, what I see in my mind's eye is the insides of a Swiss watch. All these gears have to intermesh. All these levers have to work well together. It's kind of a very tightly coupled system. But what we really need is, what happens when we want to upgrade? We get scared, right? We have to test all that. Tricentis is happy about it, though. They want to sell you the testing software, but the whole point is we've got to test the heck out of it because we're worried. What we really need is something that resembles more of an Apple Watch. So Devin, I see one on your wrist. Have you ever worried if you download a new fitness app to your Apple Watch that core timekeeping is going to stop working? No. Why is that? Because there's a secure layer to make sure that core messaging and core timekeeping and all that stuff keeps working no matter where you're downloading the innovation from. That's the exact same playbook that we need for our enterprise systems architecture as well. That's how you become more adaptable. Interesting, by the way, I didn't know this. I had to go to Wikipedia, but chameleons showed up right after the dinosaurs went away. So being adaptable has really served that small animal well. So this is my world's most simplified version of what BTP is. We have tools in the categories that are yellow that exist to help you become modular, help you go fast with pre-built content. That's the core message. So let's talk about any software that you purchase from SAP. It could be S/4, it could be anything else, software in the cloud. There's great reasons to go software in the cloud. I think most people know this. Right? The devil's always in the details. How do you stay on budget? You want well-tested logic that's been tested across thousands of companies. So you're not a system of one. Nobody wants to be that. We've been worried about spending 80% of our budget just keeping the lights on. We got to get that number down. And we want a steady pace of innovation. I've talked to customers all the time that haven't upgraded in 3 or 4 years. Right? Is your company in that boat by chance? There's one. Yeah, they're everywhere. Upgrading is hard, right? And so let's say the light blue area is S/4HANA. We did not write S/4 for your company. We wrote it for a lot of companies. So you're not going to use every function, just like none of us use every function in Excel. Well, unless somebody really does, but I've never seen anybody that does. But you're going to wind up using the middle blue amount of stuff that fits your world. But there's always going to be uncovered scope, things integrating to a unique environment that you have, differentiating scope for your company as well. As long as you get a great fit with the stuff that we deliver, let's say 80%, BTP exists for this reason, to complete the picture so you get a custom fit with S/4 in the cloud. And importantly, because everybody else is, 27,000 customers are now using BTP, future functionality that you need is very likely to be within BTP when you're ready to adopt it. And so the way you, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, just one thing on here. So, quick question. Did anybody, I see a few oil and gas guys in here, did anybody attend the Chevron presentation yesterday? I mean, great presentation. One of the things that resonated with me that I took away was that they're doing a lot of the work on their ECC, multiple ECC environments now before their S/4 deployment, making it simpler and easier. They've ported all their integration out to Integration Suite. They're doing work with DataSphere. They're doing work with, pulling some of their apps out of Core ABAP. And that's a key thing. And I'll say this too, work at SAP, it's my job. I run a program called BTP Everywhere, trying to get all the different groups, S4, Ariba, Concur, SuccessFactors, using BTP the same way. It's a challenge though. And I come into some of these RISE deals and I get called in and take a look at what's going on, and they're trying to get their deployment, their RISE deal done. And I'm like, well, what's going on with BTP? Have they cleaned their core yet? Have they poured out their integrations? A lot of times they haven't. So I would say for you, it's critical to make sure up front, like Chevron did, get that work done early. We have a methodology called prep, move, run. The prep phase is absolutely critical to get some of that work done in advance of the S4 project to make it a simpler project at lower risk.
Yeah, and to be clear, use BTP with ECC long before you jump to S4. It'll help you get there by far. And by the way, I don't know if you went to the ConocoPhillips one. They went from 9,500 RICEFs down to 600. So they're doing everything they can to get cleaner. It may not be perfectly clean, but it's getting there, right? And so the way you stay lockstep with SAP is to develop on BTP, because guess what? We're developing our cloud ERP on BTP, as we are with our HCM stuff, our procurement stuff, our supply chain stuff, our CX stuff. We're injecting AI into each one of these business processes, so it's all coming together in this modular way. It runs on your favorite infrastructure, so whether you want to use AWS or Azure or Google, it's supported. We recommend putting BTP on your favorite infrastructure cloud because we work on different things. You get the best of both worlds. With SAP, we focus on the business processes. How do you optimize that process? How do you make better decisions based on your business data? How do you defeat those departmental silos? And how do you get AI into the business process? The infrastructure guys are doing amazing stuff, right? How do you optimize your compute? How do you scale your storage? How do you make sure you have enough bandwidth? How do you make sure you get to the right data center? So the two work hand in hand. You really do get the best of both worlds. But people still ask this question. What's the difference between your platform and their platform, right? And the best way I can answer it is that it helps you become more productive, but I'll do that through an analogy because I think it makes sense. So let's say your boss walks in the room. He had a great weekend barbecuing at his house. He has an amazing idea. I want you to build this Lego city that covers this entire conference table because we have this important customer coming in next Monday. So my question to you is pretty simple. Would you run down to the Lego store and buy Lego city kits to build skyscrapers and firehouses and everything else to get it done by Monday? Or would you go buy a big bag of Lego blocks and start from scratch? City kits? City kits. We need more coffee for you. No, no, yeah, absolutely. That's what SAP is selling. As part of BTP, you're really getting city kits. The engineering's been worked out. You can build this city quickly, and you can be sure you get it done by the deadline. And yes, you can also build applications on AWS or Azure, no doubt about it. You're just going to start with a blank sheet of paper, and you can get it done with Lego blocks, but you're just not going to have the same amount of business content to go with that. So our city kits are these things in blue. I kind of bundled them in the functionality, right? It runs on your favorite infrastructure. It has all the integration components you need for SAP stuff. And it also has integration for all the other usual suspects in the enterprise. So let's say you want to build a portal. You'd use our portal technology. If you're familiar with SAP nomenclature, that would be WorkZone, right? You connect it to your back office systems with our connectivity components. You make sure you don't get hacked by using the same security you use for all your other systems of record. You might want to include workflow if that portal actually will create work in other SAP applications. You're going to deliver analytics to the people that are visiting the portal. And if you're a global company with lots of different languages, you want to support different languages too. You assemble all that with Business Application Studio. So the two words I want you to remember that make BTP very different than everything else is that they come with pre-built content. It's not just functionality in the sky. There's pre-built content involved. It starts with these microservices, but there's more. 3,500 plus different integrations are worked out. We release intelligent bots, full disclosure, mostly for S4, but we release bots every single month. Analytics Cloud doesn't come blank. It comes with templates that you can then modify to meet your business. And of course, use case blueprints are incredibly important, so you know exactly the plan to accomplish it. That's how you become much more productive. It looks like this on the web. We have modular build content, integration content, automation content, analytics content. It all starts at the Discovery Center. If you haven't been to the Discovery Center, it's amazing. Go to sap.com/disco. If I could do a disco step, I would try, but you don't want that. But it absolutely shows you all these services. It helps you with learning lessons to get started, all that kind of stuff. And all this content is now being assembled at the Business Acceleration Hub, which is found at hub.sap.com. The most important, by the way, this article just came out in Wall Street Journal a few months ago, but it really highlighted something that we're working on here, right? Technical debt is a serious problem. It's slowing down lots of companies. You've got to work on the technical debt.
And how many people saw the AWS presentation with RJ Bibby the other day? Was anybody in that one? Yeah. So I'll have a question. Amazon, Google, Microsoft. How many of them are running SAP? All three of them. Do you think when they customize their SAP environment, they use their tools from the ground up and they build things on their platform, or do they use BTP? They use BTP, right? They come and use these conferences, they present on their deployments. So I share that to be like, if you don't have your hyperscaler and SAP saying the same thing, ask again. Make sure they got the right people in the room. A lot of times, let's face it, people have a certain agenda. We all do. We're driving our thing. It's critical that your hyperscaler and SAP are saying the same thing. And when I was talking to RJ last night, I said, hey, RJ, as I talk about this and what you're doing, is there one thing you want me to kind of clarify and say? It's like, hey, you forgot one important part to the stool there, and that's the SI, right? And how many people saw the Mohawk presentation yesterday with Chris White from Mohawk? And he talked about they deployed IBP in one of their divisions, did it on their own, did it all wrong, and then they called in an expert, SI, did it again. It's been a great success, And I'd shared that too. It's like, you guys have full-time jobs, really busy. Bring, and qualify your SIs in to get good guidance. But if your SI, whether it's a big one or a small one, isn't saying the same thing as your hyperscale and SAP, ask them again. I'll make one last point. We just had our big executive customer council. I think John Deere hosted it. And they raised their hand and said, hey, how many people, you're all here, we're all preaching clean core, best practice and whatnot. How many of you now can run, the recent Joule embedded AI components that are available in S4? Out of the 33 customers there, it was 11. So it was a third of them could do this because they were not yet on the service pack, the feature pack, FPS01 for RISE 2020, or S4HANA Private Cloud 2023, because they still had to work. Obviously I know it's not an easy thing to get the core clean, but even them and our top customers didn't get there quick enough. So it's one of those things that we can't stress enough. Getting all those customizations out, using BTP, and we'll talk a bit about side-by-side versus on-stack customizations.
So BTP in summary, we're there. You have a back end that looks like this right now, 400-something apps on-premise, 200-something SaaS. It exists to help you simplify across these areas, and I know my screen's a little washed out, but I will provide the slides after the fact. It helps enable modularity. It helps you go fast with pre-built content. It helps you hide an abstract, whichever way you want to look at it. All this complexity in the back end from your front end, customers, associates, partners, all that stuff. It helps you optimize your business process, and then eventually, we all kind of did the future together. We know what the future looks like. A lot more SaaS, a lot less on-premise, multiple clouds. How do you make all that real time? The benefits of BTP come down to this. It helps you adapt while reducing complexity. It helps you with automation and getting AI into your business processes. Integration is crucial. It helps you maximize the business value and integrate things together. You get valuable insights when you get rid of those silos, and you optimizing the process is everything. Ultimately, the key long-term benefit is how do you become future-proof, and it's really easy to lose sight of that. The reason you lose sight of that, by the way, is that there's a lot of technical trees that are in the way. All these topics, which are part of BTP, can turn into a day-long or week-long workshop. They can turn into a POC, and suddenly everybody's down in one rat hole just talking about integration or just talking about automation. And it'd be great if we only had one destination, but in truth, we have a lot of destinations. These are all goals that I think every organization, for the most part, has, especially the one that's in the sunshine. Now, how do you leverage Gen AI well? And so you can't lose sight of the fact that you're trying to become more future-proof.
Okay. Quick question. Is anybody here running S/4HANA public cloud in any part of your business? Is anybody running, anybody have plans to run S/4HANA public cloud in any part of your business? Okay, the thing I'll say about this, and the reason why I asked that question, when we talk about future-proof, that means you can innovate now today, and the innovations you do, you won't have to redo when you go to S4 or SuccessFactors or Reba Concur. And so we're working with customers to really abstract a lot of the things that are specific to your business or your industry that aren't provided in the default product. But I'll say this too, the big question came yesterday. I see my colleague Anthony in the back of the room that can talk a lot about the comparisons of RAP versus CAP development. I mean, first of all, S/4HANA public cloud, you can only do CAP development. There's no on-stack development allowed. So if there's a chance you might go to public cloud in a division or a part of your whole company, make sure you're, of course, doing CAP development to future-proof it so it's available for that S/4HANA public cloud environment in the future. Obviously, there's a long legacy of probably most customers in this room who developed, ABAP developments over the years in your environments. A lot of those things you're going to want to keep on stack for performance and whatnot, and it'll be RAP development. But it's one of those things where I think getting those customizations out of your core system, abstracting them, and making them available in either CAP or RAP development, that's going to accelerate your ability to keep clean core and stay current with SAP. Hopefully I'm stating the obvious, but you'd be surprised how many places we go into and we're slowed down because of customizations that even in S/4HANA have been done candidly incorrectly, and we have to redo them. So you're spending the money you're investing in, make sure you do it right.
Yeah. So BTP, without a doubt, is strategic, especially for getting ready for the future. But now everybody wants to talk about Gen AI. And I think the potential of Gen AI has filled the sails of the IT department. Our budgets have been getting crimped. We want to do more with less. It's been going on for 10 years. And suddenly people are waking up to the fact that no, there's a lot of potential to transform our business. Something we shouldn't forget, if you don't have great data, you're not going to have great AI. And so the first thing I want to quickly talk about is how do you become more data-driven? For epic bragging rights, Harvard Business Review has been running the survey for 10 years. It's of C-suite executives. The question is your business data-driven in the Fortune 500? What percentage do you think answered it as yes, we're data-driven as of last year?
20.
30. Who said 30? It's 29%. There you go. Absolutely. And so what's crazy is I've worked in the data-driven space for well over 30 years. We haven't solved this problem. So maybe I failed. No. Bottom line, it's not an easy problem to solve. SAP changed the thinking. They said we can't keep doing things the same way. The same way was this. You got a daily business process running across multiple apps. Each app has different data, right? So the way we tried to solve that problem was with IT. We transformed that data. We smushed it into a data warehouse. It turned out to be not very flexible. I always needed to call IT to anything I wanted. So then each department, finance, trucking, manufacturing, they all wanted their own data mart. That turned out to be not flexible enough. So suddenly we smushed data out to the spreadsheets and it's under people's desks. As a result, you've got rampant transformation, you've got poor governance, excessive data movement, lack of quality. A couple years ago, private equity comes along and funds some cloud-based companies, and suddenly it's like, voila, it's going to be magic. No, not exactly magic. Next thing you know, a lot of other ones are cropping up, and guess where your data analysis turns out to be? in a land far, far away from your business process where people are working on a daily basis. And so we believe that you got to keep data closer to the business process. You take any business process, order to cash, procure to pay, whatever. There's a lot of steps and there's decisions that have to be made along the way. And if your data's not working across those departments, you don't get the insights that you need to make those decisions easy. That's the whole driving force behind what we're trying to do with DataSphere. We're trying to create a simplified data fabric that combines both SAP and non-SAP data together. We're working with Calibra and Confluent and Databricks and Data Robot to kind of create this easy button to make it easier for the business users to absolutely take advantage of data.
Yeah. So quick question, how many people here are now using DataSphere? Anybody using DataSphere yet at all? Well, okay. I've been amazed. So like, let's just say there's a little bit of legacy and history that we've spent several years getting DataSphere right. This past year, the number of DataSphere deployments and successes, it's exceeded my expectations. Did anybody see the Messer presentation yesterday? Great story there about how they used DataSphere during the pandemic to take what was a really impossible situation where they very quickly had to get oxygen to hospitals and whatnot, and they had a real challenge because all their analytics was, probably a lot of people are doing, just ripping all of your data out of SAP, moving it downstream to some data source, and then building the analytics there. They had to rebuild all the hierarchies, rebuild all the the information and the business content and the information about how things were set up. And when they went originally, they were doing 98% of the reporting outside of SAP. When they got done with their DataSphere project, they were doing like 90% of the reporting in SAP. And you can imagine the speed that delivered to them and the reduction of latency of data and more accurate information that allowed them to get, in this case, oxygen to the right place at the right time to save lives. And if you saw Sneha's presentation, she talked about how they started with the integration suite, then they went to DataSphere, now they're doing low code, no code. And I think that was pretty impressive. 3 different groups at Messer in 3 different parts of the business, all going through when they did their deployments, looked and said, hey, for this project, does BTP make sense? Lots of options. They could have worked with their data, with their hyperscaler for some of those tools. They could have worked for BTP. Every time they assessed it, tested it, and when you license BTP, you get a free tier so you can kick tires and make sure it's right. But anyway, great story there about how they, deliver that success.
Yeah. By the way, Madhu, put your hand up for a second. If you want more information on Messer, Plexus was in the middle of that, so he's the right guy to grab in the hallway.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And one last comment too about the DataSphere stack here. With things like Data Robot, Databricks, Confluent, Calibra. Calibra was here. Anybody stop by the Calibra booth? Their ability to do end-to-end data lineage, impact analysis across your enterprise. If anybody ever worked with business objects like I did back in the day with Webby and universes, very powerful within that certain area. That's all on-prem. That's something out of the past, no longer available. Calibra's doing this in the cloud. Data Robot, we've basically swallowed the whole Data Robot platform on BTP. We have all their pre-built models that their data scientists have built that are available now as part of BTP. Very interesting to look at. If you want to get a quick start, a fast start, to win a success in AI or ML, take a look at Data Robot.
Bottom line, we're trying to keep the insights close to your business process. We think that's crucially important. Once you've got your data right, it's a lot easier to get your AI right. So, how do you leverage AI? I think I've asked this question of a lot of CIOs. Are you being asked for a plan for your AI by your executive committee? And the answer is always yes. Everybody wants a plan that they can relate to Wall Street, right? And so here's the problem. It's kind of like you have the Tesseract in your hand. Amazing power, but can you trust it? Kind of a real issue. You don't want to miss out, but at the same time, you don't want to be in the Wall Street Journal for the wrong reasons. The problem we've all, you guys have been to a bunch of AI sessions, I'm sure. Hallucinations are a problem. You're going to get in the Wall Street Journal for the wrong reasons. So, my kids have asked me, is AI going to replace me in the future, Dad? And the way I've answered that question, it kind of comes down to this: is Gen AI an A+ student or a C+ student? What do you guys think? Kind of a C+ student. Let me explain why. So if you complete this sentence, once upon a time, right? Gen AI is picking the next most obvious word. So if I do this again, once upon a time, need more coffee? No. No, the word that comes up 40% of the time is there, right? And so now once you're there, once upon a time there was, so now it's back to the most popular word, right? But is that the answer that Tucker Bryant comes up with? And I think the answer is no. Once upon a Houston sunrise, futures bloomed in sleep-deprived eyes. I can see those sleep-deprived eyes. They sipped insights with impact in sight because Bob's AI argument was right. That might be more of an A answer than a C answer. Gen AI is coming up with the C answer. So no, tell your kids they're not going to lose their spot. They just have to be able to answer like Tucker Bryant, right? Gen AI is really good at coming up at the most popular, most average answer in these areas, whether it's coding or summarizing or assisting. Traditional ML, by the way, doesn't go away. Things that involve numbers and predictions and forecasting and that stuff is absolutely important. The most important thing to realize, I think, is that you're not going to do things exactly the same way if you're going to take advantage of AI. Transformation is no longer optional. The key points I'd like you to remember is that Gen AI's got its limits. It might be really good at writing job descriptions if you feed it the right prompt, right? But it doesn't understand your current data. It doesn't understand your current business process. It's got some limitations. But when you combine large language models with understanding of the business process and understanding of the current data and some traditional ML and AI, the results can be magical. You got to make sure you mitigate the risks. Most companies that I work with want to keep their data private. And above everything else, you got to understand that you need additional technology like SAP's foundation models that are coming soon, because that is what's going to be able to knit this world together to give you reliable results. So what kind of questions can't Gen AI answer? Well, a question like this one. Will Big E Corp pay its invoice on time? If you don't have these additional components, you're not going to realize that, yes, we can count on that cash. 98% chance based on their payment record that they will pay on time. Or for example, will this purchase order deliver to our Seattle facility on time? And if you don't have current data, you won't realize that that's running late and you got to do something with your production line. Or my last question here, which is going to probably date me, by the way, is Spacely Sprockets going to renew their maintenance contract? And if you find out the answer is yes, and they might actually expand what they're doing with us, you're going to hustle your sales force over there to get that done, right? So you need these additional components to get relevant, reliable, responsible results. The foundational model from SAP is crucially important, but as is making sure that we can create a knowledge graph that includes your specific customer data as well.
Yeah, I mean, key thing, if you haven't seen it, what SAP is doing right now, we're taking all of our data in the cloud through our customers, anonymizing it, and building these foundation models. There'll just be a vector engine database that's available with no data in it. Then internally within your organization, you can call that foundation model and ask the question specific to you inside your area. None of your data is going out on the internet. And then we set up all the relationships with the large LLMs. You can try and test and pick the one of your choice that works best for your situation. But everybody's going to remember this time before the foundation model is released. Once the foundation model is released, it's going to be a whole new ballgame. And what you can do right now to make sure you can take advantage of those foundation models is make sure you're deploying our solutions in our cloud. And Amazon, Microsoft, and Google will all tell you the same thing that they should be. You do not want to take your S4 deployment and run it off somewhere else in a private cloud, because you won't be able to take advantage of the foundation models. That's one best practice. You're going to want to run S4HANA private or public cloud. Obviously, SuccessFactors, Reba, Concur, Fieldglass, they're all in our cloud. You don't have a choice. You'll be able to take advantage of the foundation models. But that's going to be the key thing you'll see in the next couple of years, is getting access to those foundation models. Once those release, it's a whole new ballgame.
So Dave and I are going to run out of time. So bottom line is I'm about to skip a little bit. We're really delivering AI in three ways. The first way that's going to be the most obvious to see, which is Joule. If you guys have watched TechEd or you watched Sapphire, it's going to be our chatbot, but it's backed up behind the scenes with an amazing amount of technology. Then we're going to have a lot of embedded AI capabilities that are part of each application area. And then, we're releasing a ton. I mean, this is what's already possible. Christian Klein committed to another 100 by the end of the year. A lot of those were announced at TechEd last week. And so a lot of embedded capability is going to have AI. And then lastly, as part of BTP, we're going to let you add custom AI through our generative AI hub to make sure that you can add AI that you need to your business process. So ultimately, we want you to leverage BTP to gain this platform leverage. Remember, you got these folks working in different conference rooms. Let's get them all working well together. I have some customer stories here. I think I'm going to just skip to Constellation.
Cool.
Yep. So let me see if pressing the button actually.
Do you guys all know Constellation brands? I took part in their products last night. Corona, Modelo, lots of alcohol, wine and whatnot. They basically have most of their alcohol production in Mexico. and they pretty much load all the trains show up at the breweries, and they load the breweries with bottles, cans, kegs, and ship them all across the U.S. 400 million cases a year, right? Over 400 million
cases a year.
Every week, about 1,000 damage claims. And before they looked at this problem, and by the way, all of our AI deployments so far have started with a design thinking session. And this is one that really benefited from that, to figure out what's the real problem we're trying to solve. And I'll keep it brief. They used to have a person walk around when those trains opened up at each location and at each distributor for Constellation brands, and they would take a picture of the damage, and then they would email Constellation and say, hey, you owe us for 10 cases of beer. It fell over during freight or something. And that was a huge effort, had to have a person hired to do that. Now, when they show up, they basically have a camera there running computer vision with one of our partners, a company called Maloney and AI that was founded by Andrew Ng. That takes a picture, or the video runs and just shows what's there. It recognizes through trained models that damage, automatically files a claim in SAP. When I saw this presentation at Sapphire, and Aaron was asked a question, first question from the audience, why did you build this solution in BTP? You're a big Google shop, why don't you just build in Google? And she was like, great question. The reason why I built this in BTP is all of our business context, all of our approval mechanisms, all of our hierarchies. If we're at the west or the east or this city or that city, the approval flow for the claim went a different direction. We didn't want to have to rebuild all that out in Google or Amazon or Microsoft or Amazon. So that's the reason why they went BTP.
Louisiana Pacific's a great story too, which you're not going to hear today because we're way behind schedule, but they got great payback. And we're going to have a session, Dave and I are going to have a session on AI after Tech Ed online, so if you want to sign up for that, we can do that. But this is what happens when you use it for a platform. Everybody starts to have a good time. And so the future is going to be composable, it's going to be much more modular, it's going to include agents. We can't cover that today, okay? But if you go to this website, this is how you're going to deliver business results with AI. So if you go there, it'll send me an email and I'll invite you to our session in November. Okay, so just go to ebitaai.com and I'll get the email, we'll figure it out, okay? And by the way, we think our agents might be kind of more suave and debonair than the minions, but we love the minions. Last story for you really quick. Andy Malumba worked on our team last year. He used to play for the Green Bay Packers and he made an amazing observation that I think is really kind of interesting. He said, look, it's not the team at the beginning of the year that had a great game plan that winds up winning the Super Bowl. It's the team that adjusts from game to game, from series to series, from play to play. That team that adjusts tends to win the game, and that is exactly why BTP exists. It helps you adapt and get ready for the future. Please connect to us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Great. And one more comment before you go away, and thanks. So Andy is hosting Meta, Cohere, Google, Amazon, NVIDIA, all under one roof in San Francisco, second week in November. If you hit Bob up in that question too, we'll also send information on that session. It's the first time ever all those vendors are in one place together talking to our customers about how they can leverage all those technologies together. So
he went from best practices Dave to promoter Dave there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.